Your portraits may not be coming out as good as they could, and it's not entirely your fault. It may actually be your camera's fault. You see, there's a bit of a hidden feature in most modern digital cameras that can really help you improve your portraits and your photography overall. It's not something you'll read about or find in your camera manual, but understanding it can really help you take better pictures. It's called dynamic range. It's a term that you may have heard before, but I'm going to give you some perspective that might help you rethink the way that you take your portraits. If you're unfamiliar with what dynamic range is, essentially it's a camera's ability to expose for the brightest parts of an image all the way down to the darkest parts of an image. The goal with dynamic range is to ensure that you're not under or overexposing your shots so that you end up losing so many details in your photograph. The way that cameras work, you could either choose to meter and expose for the brightest part of your image, which is known as the highlights, or you could expose for the darkest parts of your image, known as the shadows. In most portrait scenes, if you expose for the highlights, this will cause your subject to be underexposed. If you expose for the shadows or the darkest part of the image, this will likely end up making your photos look way brighter and completely overexposed. When you're taking a portrait, the goal is going to be to make sure that you don't overexpose your subject, as you won't easily be able to recover those bright pixels if you happen to blow them out and make them pure white. In digital cameras, most of the detail is in the shadows of the image, and today's modern cameras do a fantastic job of allowing you to recover those shadows in an almost magical fashion. Take, for example, this image that I took a while back of Masumi for my tutorial on 5 ways that you could use an umbrella. If you missed that video, I'll have it linked for you at the end of this video. One of the shots that I took was a bit of a test to see what kind of dynamic range that I could pull out of an image. The setup I had in mind was to have the umbrella behind Masumi, giving her this beautiful heavenly glow, while giving her a soft, flat light from the front. Typically, this would be a 2-light setup in my studio, but I got to thinking, what if I was on set with a client who wanted this shot and one of my strobes blew up, caught fire, just didn't work? Would it be possible to pull off the look using a single light? If so, could it be done by providing some fill from the front using maybe a white wall or V-flats? There's only one way to find out. I grabbed 2 white V-flats and placed them about 4 feet away from Masumi and made some space in between the 2 panels so that I could get my camera in there and take the shot. As I fired off the shot, the light from behind Masumi went off, it wrapped around her, it hit the white V-flat, and then it bounced back to illuminate her from the front. In theory, it seemed like it might be possible to light her perfectly using this method, but then I reviewed the photos on the back of my camera and it looked like this. This is the image straight out of camera, no adjustments or anything at this point. You'll notice that you could barely make out any details in her face. To be really honest with you all, I wasn't entirely sure if I'd be able to recover the shadow details in post-production, but check this out. Because I took this image in a raw format with a few exposure slider adjustments in Capture One or Lightroom, you can end up with something like this final image. Insane, right? This is what dynamic range can do for your portrait work. It allows you to expose, in this case for the highlights of the image, and then bring up the shadow details to give you a nicely balanced image. The same principles hold true for really any kind of photography that you might be into. From portraits to landscapes, it's generally good practice to expose for the highlights, knowing that when you get to your computer that you can recover those shadow details. Keep in mind that if you're shooting in JPEG, this isn't something that you'll be able to do, so make sure that you're shooting in RAW. If you found this video helpful, make sure that you drop me a like on the video. Consider subscribing to my channel as well, as I release new videos here all the time. Now, make sure that you go check out the other video that I did with Masumi so you can learn some new lighting techniques that will really help you to improve your portraits even more. I'll see you there.